Good evening, 8 p.m. here in Cairo, time for Panorama News, and we'll be leading off with the headlines. President Sisi directs to exempt raw material and production supplies from importation procedures. The National Training Academy makes an invitation for a national dialogue. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry visits Rabat to probe cooperation enhancement with Morocco. Welcome back to details. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi directed on Tuesday to exempt raw material and production supplies from the recently implemented import process. The president made his directives during his meeting with Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, Central Bank President Tariq Amir, and the Economic Ministerial Group, which included the Minister of Planning and Economic Development, Hala Said, Minister of International Cooperation, Rania Al-Mashat, Minister of Finance, Mohamed Mait, Minister of Public Sector, Hisham Tawfiq, and Minister of Trade and Industry, Naveen Gema. According to presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassem Radi, such exemption would be tackled by referring them to the old system through collection documents. Radi said the meeting tackled the work of the ministerial group as well as procedures being implemented to face impact of the ongoing international economic crisis on Egypt. During the meeting, Amir said presented the current monetary status, confirming that Egypt's economy could confront repercussions of the international economic crisis resulting from the Ukrainian war, confirming that the state could maintain the safe economic and financial path as well as balanced monetary position after meeting all the state's international obligations. Upon directives of President Sisi, the National Training Academy made an invitation for a national dialogue and said it would manage it with total impartiality. The National Youth Conference, organized under the auspices of the National Academy for Training during the Egyptian Family Iftar, will coordinate with all youth and political parties to manage the national dialogue on priorities of the national work during the current phase and delivering the outcomes of the state. The Academy's role is to coordinate among the various groups involved in the dialogue without interfering with content or subject of discussion. This paves the way for achieving a serious, effective and inclusive dialogue of all parties and groups in parallel with ambitions and aspirations of the political leadership as well as various political forces. The Academy will start the dialogue sessions and there will be an also open registration on the website of the National Youth Conference for those who wish to participate, with open fields and horizons for all. The national dialogue considered an important step to determine the priorities of the national action on launching the new republic, which accepts and embodies all parties. The Presidential Pardoning Committee hailed the invitation for the national dialogue called by the National Academy for Training, which it said would open door for a serious and active dialogue that gathers all political parties without any exclusion. The committee further added that it would participate in the dialogue and called on Egyptians to share it with the aim of realizing a prosperous and better future. Meanwhile, the Youth Parties and Politicians Coordination Committee appreciated the national dialogue invitation, accepting it, and said it would start to work on all axes and files to open pathways for community interaction on all economic, social and political levels. And the National Coalition for Civil Development Action announced its participation in the national dialogue. Also, Al-Wafd and Al-Masrin Al-Ahrar, Humayt al-Watan, Democratic People, Al-Masriyin, Al-Tajammu and Sons of Egypt parties welcomed the dialogue, which is aimed to build the new republic with the participation of all sectors of the society. Minister of Defense and Military Production Mohammed Zaki witnessed on Tuesday a discussion of a key research by the Armed Forces Operation Authority, which entitled A Future Vision to Develop Loyalty of Egyptian Youth and Contemporary Changes. The discussion was attended by Osama Askar, the Armed Forces Chief of Staff, and a number of Armed Forces leaders, in addition to strategic experts and intellectuals. The research was prepared by a number of strategic experts and researchers of the Armed Forces national security sectors. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held talks with Morocco's Chief of the Consulate Council, Naim Mayara, during his visit to Rabat on Tuesday. The meeting discussed the role of the Arab parliaments in boosting joint cooperation mechanisms Shukri also held talks with Dr. Selim El-Malik, the General Director of the Organization of Islamic Conference for Education, Science and Culture. During the meeting, the top diplomat said Egypt backs the role of the organization and values cooperation with it in all fields. Earlier, Shukri held meetings with Morocco's foreign minister and several other top officials over continuous upgrading of bilateral relations in various fields. Talks covered overall international development and included consultations over Arab and regional issues. Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait flies to the Moroccan city of Marrakesh to take part in the ministerial meeting of the International Alliance Fighting Daesh. Arab League sources said Abul Ghait is to give a speech before the meeting Wednesday, reviewing the League's view of means of fighting Daesh and terrorism. In general, the sources said the Arab League's efforts to curtail terrorism and bring back security and stability to areas plagued by the phenomena will also be reviewed. Jordan's King Abdullah II will visit Washington on Friday for talks with U.S. President Joe Biden. The White House said in a statement that this trip would reinforce the close friendship and enduring partnership between the two states. The visit will be the long-time U.S. ally's second to Washington since Biden took office, following talks between the king and the president in July 2021. At that time, Biden stressed his long-standing relationship with the king, noting that it goes back to decades when Abdullah's father ruled Jordan. Opening a donor event in Brussels, EU foreign policy chief warned Tuesday that Russia's military operation in Ukraine was making the plight of poverty-stricken Syrians far worse and urged the donors to dig deep to help the Middle East country raked by more than a decade of civil war. Josep Borrell said that 60% of Syria's population suffer food insecurity and barely know where the next meal is coming from.